Hey everybody, it's Miss Peachy again from WCA Biology. So I just got this headset recently and it's new, and I did not realize that if I have the microphone here versus down here, it's really different. So I apologize if the last couple of videos kind of sounded a little tinny, a little echoey, because I mean, my old microphone didn't really matter, but this one apparently does. So in any case, we are on Unit 5, Lesson 7, and that is cellular respiration in matter. And so cellular respiration is kind of a hard concept. And when you're reading through the lessons, you're going to be like thinking, wow, this is just really hard. So I'm hoping to simplify it a little bit for you. I do want to remind you that there is a kind of a follow along note sheet that goes along with these videos on my website. So we'll kind of be going through this worksheet together a little bit. So vocab on the first page, and we'll be kind of going through this vocabulary as we go through the lesson today. So cellular respiration is how living things access energy. It's energy that they've stored or energy that they've eaten. So if you are an animal, you eat your food and then you have to break that food down and access the energy that's stored in the food. A plant does photosynthesis, they make their own food, but they still need to access that stored energy in the food that they've made and break it down into more usable form of energy. So plants, animals, all kind of eukaryotic living things do cellular respiration. Most of them do. Most of them do, I should say. There's a few of them, a few examples that don't, like yeast, for example, a type of fungi. They don't do cellular respiration, but most and all multicellular living things do. Okay, so we're using stored chemical energy, or we're breaking down and using stored chemical energy. So cellular respiration is something that requires, well, we have aerobic cellular respiration, which we're going to be talking about today. And the word aerobic means that it requires oxygen to do. So we're going to be looking at that more specifically today. All right, so in a plant cell or an animal cell, which we're going to focus on those two kinds because they're just good models for us to use. They have both cytoplasm and mitochondria. Those are both necessary to perform cellular respiration because the steps of cellular respiration take place in some in the cytoplasm, some in the mitochondria itself, different parts of it. The end result of cellular respiration is to produce the molecule ATP. We've seen this before, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So we need this energy to do all the functions that enable us to stay alive, right? It's the process of taking food and breaking it down into more usable form of energy to eventually to manufacture ATP is really the end result that we're looking for. You'll notice that cellular respiration pretty much has the opposite equation as photosynthesis. So we start with sugar and oxygen, and we break it down into water, carbon dioxide, and energy. It's the reverse of the photosynthesis chemical equation. So sugar, this type of sugar, C6H12O6, is known as glucose, and glucose is a simple sugar. So we need to make sure we start off with a simple sugar, not a complex sugar here. So you'll see this is kind of another model showing glucose plus oxygen gives us water and carbon dioxide, right? So this is kind of a way in which we break it down. But again, the end result is to try to get ATP. So we have sugar, glucose, and we have ATP. Why do we need ATP when we have sugar? Everybody knows if I eat lots of sugar, I get super hyper, I have tons of energy, and so obviously sugar has energy in it. And that's 100% true. But glucose is a more complex molecule. It's much harder for your body to get at the energy that's stored in the molecule of glucose than it is to get at the energy stored in ATP. ATP is smaller. Cells are more easily able to access that energy than they can in glucose. So that's kind of why. It's smaller, but you get more ATP per every molecule of glucose. So you have more of them, but they're smaller pieces, so they're easier to access. Okay, So let's move on to a couple other questions here. I'm gonna kind of go, let's see here. Oh, it says, where does it take place? Well, this is our mitochondria, right? So it either takes place outside the mitochondria, part of it does, glycolysis does, outside in the cytoplasm itself, and some of it is inside the mitochondria as well. And we'll talk more about that in the next lesson. So going through kind of the rest of this lesson, remember to answer your questions and do the examples, watch the videos, do your practice. And then I wanted to talk about this page of the lesson. We're on page 8. And this talks about what calories are. Because most of us are more familiar with calories than any other type of measure of energy in our food. So energy stored in food is measured in units called calories. I want you to pay attention to the lowercase c here. So the lowercase calorie is the amount of energy that is needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So when we think about what energy is, if I have energy in heat, for example, I can take that heat and I can use it to heat up water and warm it up and change the temperature. The amount of heat that I need to change the temperature of that water by a degree Celsius is considered a calorie of heat or a calorie of energy. So heat is just one kind of way in which we can see, or I guess we can't really see it, but you can kind of detect energy, right? We're familiar with that. The calories you see on your food, they are not little lowercase c calories. They're actually capital C calories. So a calorie in your food is actually equal to 1,000 of those little calories. So as you can imagine, that's the amount of energy it would take to raise water, 1,000 grams of water by a degree Celsius, right? So if I had 1,000 grams of water or a kilogram of water and I wanted to raise it by 1 degree Celsius, that would be 1 kilocalorie or 1 capital C calorie. So when you see your food, you're going to see calories. Let me just, I think I have some food here with me. Here we go. I have a granola bar here. And on the back, it says here that my granola bar is 170 calories, capital C calories. So that would mean that the amount of energy in this granola bar is going to be enough energy to raise 1,000, let's see. So, I mean, it's basically, since there's 170 calories in here, so rather than raising it by just 100 or 170, we could actually multiply that by 1,000 to be able to get the amount of energy, the amount of energy that is required in here. So it's 170 calories is equal to 170,000 little calories. That's a lot. That makes me feel bad. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. So you're talking about the amount of energy it would take to then raise 1 degree. So, you know, instead of 1,000 grams, it would be 170,000 grams, I guess. I don't know. That seems like a lot. Maybe my math is wrong. But point is that your food actually contains quite a bit of energy. Now, do you use and extract every single calorie in here in your body? Absolutely not. You can't break all this down. But it just kind of goes to show you how much calories are actually in your food. There's quite a bit of them and how much we need as a really big organism to be able to function. So that's the gist of this lesson here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to move on to the next lesson, which is a bit more complicated. So we'll talk more specifically about cellular respiration in the next one.